Hey everybody, Max and Brian here from IGN, and we're with Brian Flynn at Super7 in San Francisco. It is a toy store for people like us who grew up with toys and still love them. He-Man, Masters of the Universe, beloved toy line, very iconic. You guys have been not only keeping it alive, but kind of really resurrecting it and pushing it in new directions, including making little tiny skinny He-Man characters and very articulated ones. What are you doing with He-Man?
Or Masters of the Universe?
Masters of the Universe, my apologies.
Yeah.
Gotta get the branding down.
Yeah, it's Skeletor, that's not He-Man. No, we're just trying to have as much fun as we can with the license and make as much different things that we would be interested in as sort of adults with Masters of the Universe. Obviously, we all had sort of the 5.5-inch figures when we were younger, but now it's like, what else can we do with it? Where else can we go with this? So in a case like, for me, for my age, being a little older, I had Star Wars figures at the same time. So let's take Masters of the Universe, but put it in the Star Wars form factor and sort of invent how those figures might have looked.
Now that's so funny because, originally we see like how the He-Man figures came out. They were presented as like the Star Wars killer. Like they're bigger, they're tougher, they're beefier. So to kind of go back and put them back into that scale, was there resistance from Mattel?
Yes.
To be like, you're taking our big muscle man and shrinking him down?
There was a lot of resistance to everybody, and we ended up sort of convincing them of why it was a good idea and that people would be interested. And in the beginning, they were like, as long as it only happens at San Diego Comic-Con, we'll be fine. And then, of course, once it's popular, well, that's a whole nother story.
Right.
If it failed at San Diego, it's fine.
Are you sort of surprised at the longevity of He-Man, considering that it's not like you guys interface with Star Wars and Alien and all these brands that sort of pop up every few years with like a new film or something else. But He-Man was a animated show and then a not great movie and then really nothing else for a long time. But there's still such a deep connection to that character and his friends.
But if you really think about the original trilogy of Star Wars, you're really talking about a 6-year run.
Yeah.
Between Star Wars coming out and Jedi coming out. That's the whole thing. Masters was 4 years of toys and 3 years of cartoons and stuff like that. So it was around for almost the same amount of time as Star Wars, and you couldn't watch Star Wars at that time. But you could watch Masters of the Universe every day.
Yeah.
And I think because it was fantastical, it didn't date itself the same way that, say, like a G.I. Joe, when you look back now, it feels so firmly 80s because the cultural touch points, where they're coming from, it's set
the Reagan era.
It's set in the 1980s.
Yep.
It's set in Eternia in who knows when. And I don't know, that guy's got a giant skull head and he's gonna and he talks a lot of junk.
So not only do you trespass in my domain, but you insult me as well.
I mean, let's face it, that's the most compelling thing, I think, when you really come back to it, is like Skeletor as the villain is so visually iconic and the character is so unique in its complete just beratement of the entire world around him.
Was he the first cartoon character to say boob on TV?
Might have been. He didn't mean it in the way we talked about
boob?
it.
Yeah, I don't know, but I haven't done my boob research that
Beast
way.
man, you furry fool. But no, I mean, he's like a glow-in-the-dark skeleton with abs and a ram horn staff, and he opens his mouth and he sounds like Shakespearean Gilbert Gottfried. So.
And specifically what's so strange about He-Man is that when you look at Star Wars, you're dealing with some very menacing villains. You're dealing with Darth Vader, who strikes fear in the heart. Even in Rogue One, he came out and had the most terrifying scene in the entire movie, almost like Jason Voorhees. Skeletor is inept. All of his friends are idiots. There's something sort of like lovable and bumbling about these guys.
He's completely charming in that regard. He's completely charming.
So what attracted you sort of to these characters? Because I think a lot of people think of He-Man as this heroic guy, but for me, He-Man was more about his like weird band of brothers and his like messed up side characters, and like these guys that came out and they had like snake hands, and one of them like literally stunk.
Yeah, I think what you come back though with that is that it had so many different archetypes. The people that really, really love He-Man are usually the same guys that are really, really into Captain America.
Right.
They're really, really into the sort of the pure archetype. I take care of myself, I take care of the world around me, I am the protector. There's this sort of very wholesome 2 gallons of milk a day kind of guy that really loves He-Man. And then you have other people that are really into like there's a good villain. Trap Jaw's really, really iconic. So you can have all these different archetypes for lots of people to fall in. And I think the greater world and the adventure of it all was much more interesting to everybody.
So like He-Man's for jocks and like Stinkors for nerds.
I think Stinkors for the burnouts, the stoners out back.
Moss Man, I can see that. Yeah.
So now, tell us about this new adult collector's line that you guys are putting together.
So this is the continuation of the original Matty Collector line, except this is the latest version of the Filmation characters, and this is a Hordak figure, obviously. And same thing, this gets into how can we make these figures look exactly or as close to exact as you saw them in the cartoon. Really getting down to, making sure all the paint is matte and flat, all the angles are really simplified. How can we really really make it feel like the Filmation cartoon?
And there were always weird inconsistencies there, like whether or not Man-at-Arms had a mustache and stuff like that.
He shaved a lot.
Yeah, Merman was like, he just looked like a different animal in the action figure.
Well, that's because the action figures came out a year and a half before the cartoon. So they took all these action figures, tried to simplify them for animation, and then just went, okay, here's all the stuff that's on that guy, take half of it off. Okay, here we go. Go make that. Then later in the show now they've created characters in the show and we got to figure out how to make toys of them. So we're just, the same thing, it's like, as an adult collector now, you have all these different sensibilities. You have some of this nostalgia play, but at a certain point you're like, oh, I want the ultimate badass Hordak. So that's what this is. It's the ultimate badass Hordak. And you guys probably should just say that across the top. Ultimate badass Hordak.
And you guys made the packaging look like Castle Grayskull, which is another thing, one of the most I would say, iconic play sets of all time. When I was a kid, there was a couple things I had. I had like the Ninja Turtle sewer, I had the Ghostbusters firehouse, but Castle Grayskull was the thing where like friends would come over and their brothers and sisters and stuff like that, and they would be terrified of this thing. Like it actually instilled fear into the hearts of children, which I don't know if is really the intention for toys, but it worked and it was pretty badass because of it.
It's weird to be scared of a house.
Yeah, it's a little bit, but it's also in that thing where it's like Castle Grayskull is so iconic. It's one of those things you could argue very much is as integral to the Masters of the Universe toy line as the characters themselves. That play set is what set it apart from everything else. Because every kid had it. There wasn't a kid that was like, oh yeah, I didn't have Grayskull.
I got a shoebox, I'm good.
Yeah, I got a couple figures, but I don't need Grayskull. It was like, no, I need Grayskull, and then give me somebody to put in it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a classic line. I'm so glad you guys are still working on it and that you're keeping it alive for future generations to enjoy and be completely confused by, because it's such a weird group of characters.
Yeah, and obviously because we're not at Comic-Con and you're still managing to make more of these guys, you've kind of earned like Mattel's blessing on this.
Exactly.
Is there any chance we'll be seeing maybe other beloved 80s cartoons make any kind of appearance in this sort of resurrection style, this renaissance?
You mean things with cats in them?
Who knows?
Yeah, maybe someday.
A kid can dream.
Oh my God.
I won't say that I won't try, or haven't been trying for a year and a half. But, one of these days.
If you're a fan of beloved 80s things, He-Man or otherwise, Masters of the Universe, Snake Mountain, who knows what, keep an eye on Super7, their super7store.com, or stop by their stores in San Diego or San Francisco. Brian, thank you so much for chatting. Brian, thank you also so much for chatting.
You're welcome. Thanks, Brian.
Plenty more toys coming here from IGN. If you enjoyed that video about the Masters of the Universe, check out our other video we shot at Super7. They're up to some really cool stuff over there. And if you like 80s retro stuff, we got a bunch of coffee table books about stuff like old cartoons, Ninja Turtles pizza, and of course, Die Hard for Babies. And watch up at noon every Thursday at noon Pacific time on IGN.
Hey, you using this? It's mine now.
What the hell?
It's called Crimes.
Don't do crimes, watch our shows, and stay in school.